Welcome to Legacy Driven Marriages Podcast, episode 32. Yes, 32. It's wild for me to think that we got 32 episodes
Yeah,
done.
that's crazy.
Talk about time flying. Look, it's time, guys, as we are every single Tuesday to get into the marriage arena. Let's have some fun. Let's have some candid, relevant conversations. Everything meant to strengthen your relationship with your partner and strengthen your marriage. I'm your host, Walt McKinley, here with my beautiful co-host, my partner in crime, Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, everybody.
As we get started today, make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss an episode. And we're going to jump right into this today, because today we're talking about something that we all struggle with, and that's how do you make time for yourself? How do you make time for your spouse in such a busy world? I mean, we've got so many things taking our time and pulling away minutes, hours, days at a time. We turn around sometimes and we're in this fatigue and this burnout. We wonder why. And it's because we have so many things putting pressure on us that we have to really take a step back and reprioritize. So as always, we're going to we're going to tell some stories, talk about just what time looks like in a relationship and why you need to also prioritize yourself as well as your spouse and your kids. And then we're going to give you 4 different techniques that you can start using today to change some things in how you manage your time and give you hopefully some time back or make you feel better about the way you're using it.
Yeah, you guys. Walt and I definitely know what busy looks like. Very, very well. We've had some real seasons of where, and sometimes it's a little bit different for both of us. Like there's been seasons where I was really busy and he wasn't as busy, or he was really busy and I wasn't as busy. And sometimes we're both busy, and that's when it gets really hard. So we understand all of you out there, and I think this is I think the world we live in today is busier than ever. I mean, because we have so many pressures and demands all the time. Like he was just saying that, kids and activities the way that they are, social media, just the fact that we have internet and how much that's in our face all the time. I was talking
24/7, nonstop, all day, every
I was
day,
talking to him
accessible.
earlier about how cell phones have just made it just feels like there's something at you all the time. There's constant distractions more like than there ever has been before, where, because of text and email and the fact that you can look up anything on your phone. And so there's access to all the stuff on the internet, and that's always there all the time, constant, even phone calls coming in, they can come to you at any time. It's not like, where it used to be where the phone was in one place of your house, and like, if you weren't home, you just didn't answer your phone. You know what I mean? People got a voicemail, but that's not necessarily always the case these days. Like,
Well, I mean, think back in the day, you didn't even get a voicemail; it just rang. If it didn't get picked up, it didn't get picked up, and you better not be calling somebody after 8-9 p.m.
right.
I feel
like there was a lot more boundaries with phones before cell phones.
Oh yeah, and
And I feel like we need to kind of put them back in place.
yeah, it's so rudimentary. As you were talking, I was thinking to myself, think about back in the day. You got a little yellow sewed sticker on your cut when people were coming across to the west, and their day was dictated by the sunrise and sunset, right? And so many of those people, it was such an easier, simpler way of life.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was simpler, but definitely
in some ways, right? I mean, I don't want to go lay on the ground
different.
and be in a horse covered wagon and rained on and storms and hail and
Simpler, not easier.
so
What's the difference?
So we feel you guys. Look, if you're out there right now and you're feeling this pressure and this inner angst and anxieties at an all-time high, and you're feeling guilt because you're not spending time with this person or that person, you're feeling burnt out. You got work, you got kids in travel sports, you picking up from daycare, going home, trying to cook some dinners, hang out with your spouse a little bit and make your marriage great, and then you need some sleep too. Try to squeeze in some sleep. That exhaustion's real. Kids, jobs, spouses, family members, just the day to day. It's so difficult to recharge your own batteries, much less help somebody recharge theirs. And so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the importance of prioritizing yourself. And in these seasons of busyness, sometimes you're not going to be able to prioritize yourself as much because your spouse needs you more, or your kids need you more, or you're busy at work and you're in this sprint to deliver a product or whatever it may be. I don't know that I ever even understood what self-care was. And I damn sure as a man wasn't about like, yeah, I'm going to go do some self-care today. So men, if you need to, call it maintenance like a car. Call it what you got to, but the need to really be the best version of you so that the people you love the most get the best version of you is huge. But far too often, and Steph, I know you got a lot to say about this as far as being a mom. Far too often, we're exposing ourselves to these external pressures in society that tell us how we're supposed to be. That might not even be congruent with who we are, but that definitely peel away our time and put pressure on us to behave and act and do things a certain way. And I think men and women together, we start down these roads and we don't prioritize what really is the most important thing. And because we don't do that, what we love the most is what suffers the most, including ourselves. What I learned through my breakdown in corporate America was the need to really focus on my own self-care and my own maintenance. I didn't have to be Captain Resilience all the time and the rock for everybody. I have somebody else who can be the rock for me and my spouse, and having those vulnerable conversations together. So I think even I learned a lot over the last 5 years, especially 2.5 years ago when I had that breakdown. I learned a lot about just the value of that and how little importance I put and how I didn't show up as a dad the way I wanted to, which added some guilt. I didn't show up as a husband the way that I wanted to, which added some guilt. I wasn't being the leader that I could be at work. That added some guilt. Meanwhile, I was just suffering in an empty shell of who I was as a human being. So I want you to get excited about this. If you're feeling that way, we feel you, because Steph felt that way as a mother too at times. And we're going to really give you some things, some useful things that you can start doing literally right now today to make that adjustment.
Yeah, so one of the first things we want to talk about is the way you're setting your priorities. Like, we need to learn how to prioritize what's really important and recognize that that's a choice instead of just letting ourselves get pulled in all these different directions without having any intention of what's really important. Because we both have had times where we weren't very good at this, and that's why it led to a really bad place for us. And then we learned to correct it from there. But hopefully we can help you not get to that place and just,
Use us as a cautionary tale.
yes, exactly. We I talked to Walt about this because as a mom, this is like, as a new mom, I should say, is when I struggled the most with this. Um, I didn't know how to balance everything. That took me a long time to figure out the balance and it's something I was always craving, but couldn't figure out how to get there. And like he said, I felt like I was always the last priority, and that didn't help me show up for my family. It actually hurt me showing up for them because I wasn't prioritizing that. So one of the biggest lessons I learned was that I needed to find time. I had to find time for me first, and then I showed up better for them. So I know, like, when I was in that phase, I was like, um, I'm trying to show up for the kids. I'm trying to show up for him. I don't have any energy left for myself. And so I learned that I started putting, so just for an example, I learned, oh, I can find a gym that has like a gym for my kids that they'll watch the kids, and I can go get an hour or 30 minutes to an hour of a workout for myself. And that was my me time. And I can't tell you how much that did for me personally, like, just to have that little bit of time for myself. And mentally, it helped me, physically, it helped me. And it just felt good to have some time where it was just mine.
And you remember, Steph, you were talking to me about you just felt empty. And I'm like, join a volleyball league. You like playing volleyball. Go out and hang out with one of your girlfriends. Do a girls' night. I was even giving you ideas. And so I want you guys to pick up on, because I know a lot of moms especially feel like this mom guilt. They got to be this Pinterest wife and this Pinterest mother and this perfection of everything that they see. Because you really resisted against doing those type of things because you felt guilty that you didn't want to leave and go take care of yourself a little bit.
Yes, that mom guilt is real. I really did feel guilty taking any time for myself. It was really hard to get over that. And it actually was getting around other moms and realizing I wasn't alone in that. And they shared the same kind of thing. And one of them gave me that tip that they went to the gym, and I never really thought about it. I was like, oh, I didn't realize like they can watch the kids for you. How awesome. Because as a military couple, we didn't have family around to help
Right.
us out. And so I could never really have someone watch the kids, or not easily, and everyone else is working during the day. So I learned that I could do that. And, we learned that we used to resist getting a babysitter because of the cost mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So we started to take turns with a friend watching each other's kids so we could take date nights. And that's how we got our couple time in, is we'd offer to watch one of our friends' kids and they would take ours in return. Or a little bit like later on, we got one of our friends had a teenage daughter and she would watch the kids for us. And we learned to start prioritizing that because we realized we got to a really bad
Yeah.
place. Like I got into a really deep depression from not prioritizing that self care. And it really hurt our marriage. Our marriage got to a really low place because I wasn't prioritizing couple time for us. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was like the biggest lesson I learned, is start prioritizing those things. And it really is choosing to make that a priority. Because
Yeah.
like I said, I could have been doing that stuff all along. I just didn't prioritize it. I didn't realize like I should have just said, hey, like once I started saying, I'm going to go to the gym first thing and that's going to be my time first thing in the morning. And as the kids went to school, even I kept that as
Right.
it would be like right after I took them to school or they left for school, I went straight to the gym and got that time for myself. And same thing with the babysitting. It was like we started to prioritize, like our anniversary was a specific time where that was our vacation for just us. We
And,
would always take some kind of little weekend getaway or a week long vacation that was just us.
and by the way, it took sacrifice for us to do that. We had to drive to her parents' house, which was 6 hours away, drop the kids off, and then we like this place, Asheville, North Carolina. So we
So then
dropped
we
them
just
off
picked a
outside of
place
state.
near where they
Yeah.
live. Yeah.
And travel another 2 hours and go do something together, even if it was literally just for like a 4-day week and a 3-day week, just something quick to make sure that we reconnected as a couple, not as mom and dad, just Walt and Steph.
Mhm. And that was huge for our relationship. Huge. But, Walt wanted to talk a little bit more about like micro versus macro goals, but that was like one thing that was like prioritize that because you do need that too. And then we would always take we'd look at the school breaks, and if it was like spring break, they actually had a week. Then we planned a vacation for the
Mm-hmm.
family during that time. But we did prioritize always kind of having at least those 2 trips every year so that we got good quality time with our family and we got good quality time just us. And we started to prioritize like a date night, whether more like once a month for us was a little more realistic than trying to do that every week. But I think you should still schedule some kind of other time. It doesn't have to be a long time, just like a small, maybe an hour a day that is just your time where you talk with your spouse.
Yeah, I think a couple things I want to make a comment on here. When we were doing those things, I was still enlisted in the Navy, so we didn't have a lot of money. So I want to take away the notion that you need to go, when Steph talks about a vacation, a $10,000 vacation. That's not what we're talking about, because for most people, that's kind of unrealistic. It's something you might get to do every couple of years, go to that Hawaii vacation or whatever. And I see a lot of people do this, like, I'll be happy when. That's what they tell themselves. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be happy when we take a vacation. I'll be happy when I can do A, B, or C. I mean, just the list goes on and on. We don't focus, those are macro events that can really move your whole energy, like your life energy, this bucket of energy that you carry around with you, forward. What people don't realize is oftentimes we all let ourselves get in such a deficit from that life energy that we're expecting it to refill this bucket. And sometimes it just gets us back to zero. We don't give enough credit to the micro things that we can do day to day. So sometimes in seasons of life, like Steph was talking about when the kids were little, I actually got to go play basketball at lunch during work because physical fitness was huge in the military. I got to go fishing with my buddies sometime. I was going and doing things that fulfilled me individually, where I could show up as a great dad and I can show up as a better spouse. She wasn't. And I got to tell you guys, you got to be real with yourself. Your individual self-care should be the number one priority, not to the point of being selfish, but it should be the number one priority. And because if you're not being the best version of you, you're not putting out that positivity. You're not, the mindset isn't there. So then you're not going to be the best spouse. And if you're not the best spouse and your spouse is also struggling, your marriage starts to struggle. When your marriage struggles, your whole family struggles, because divorce does affect children, whether or not it's amicable or not, it does affect children. If you want to create a powerful legacy, it really does start with being the best you, doing that self-care and that maintenance or whatever that looks like for you, because everybody's different, and prioritizing that. And these micro things you can do, guys, this is saying, hey, I'm going to go just take a walk by myself for 15 minutes every night. I'm going to talk to my spouse and say, hey, I just need some alone time, collect my thoughts. I'm going to go walk 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to go in the room and close the door and I'm going to lock it and I'm just going to read. It might even mean for you scrolling through social media, but I find that a lot of people get defeated by social media because you see what's perfect, even though behind that is bullshit and people are struggling out there. So find those micro things you could do individually in your relationship and as a family. Because here's the thing, guys, at the end of the day, your job doesn't care about you at all. Your job doesn't care about you. The people may, but not like your kids, not like your spouse. So the biggest, I think if I sat anybody down and said, what's your number one priority? Why are you working so hard? Why are you doing everything that you're doing? They would say for their spouse and their children. That's what matters. They don't realize them not being the best version of themselves affects their relationship with all of them. You're frustrated, you're edgy, they're walking around in eggshells. I mean, this shit is real. This is what happens. This is what we've both done individually too. So find time, even little dates. When you put the kids to bed, get that sneaky little Oreo ice cream out or whatever the heck you're going to have. You know, those cookies you hid in the carrot bag because they ain't going to eat some carrots. Do those little things, those cuddle moments, watching the show.
I think it's important when you have young kids, have an earlier bedtime for them. They should be going to bed early. And then that gives you a little bit of time with your spouse, because I'm sure there's always at least one spouse working, maybe two. So generally you don't get time until the evening to really have any time together. I know for us, we kind of always tried to sit down and at least watch a show together or something so that we're at least like sitting together. We can kind of cuddle and there's some physical touch and we can, just
By the way,
because in that phase, we know we've been there. We understand you guys. It's exhausting and you have hardly any energy by the end of the day. You have hardly anything to give to anybody. So we understand that. And so a lot of times for us, it was like just being able to just relax together at the end of the day was our time together.
Well, and think about it. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. Everybody's heard that quote. So does your self-care. So do the micro things that add up. So when you pump a macro event like a vacation in there, which by the way, sometimes that's not even relaxing because you got your kids with you. You pump a big thing like a vacation. Now your cup's overflowing. You're just not getting back to zero. And I think another piece of this, I mean, even if it's intimacy in your relationship and that ability to reconnect, even if it's you scheduling something for self-care for yourself, you want to go to a painting class or you want to do something, schedule it. And look, guys, this schedule doesn't have to be extensive. You don't have to get crazy with it. Schedule once or twice a week for you to do some self-care. Schedule once or twice a week for you to really connect with your spouse and talk together or do the little sneaky date night when the kids go to bed. Schedule it. It's amazing when you schedule it. Will you hit it 100% of the time? No, it's impossible. Life happens. We get it. But man, the level of intentionality it takes to schedule something and then the excitement that builds for you to pour into yourself or pour into your relationship changes. It's like the anticipation's different. You're super excited and you're pumped about it. And you're looking forward to it and your energy feels different around it.
Right. I was going to say, so first we were talking about prioritization, make certain things a priority. Second, we're talking about scheduling it. So I was saying to him, like, the calendar is my best friend these days. I mean, in this
I think that's just because we're getting old now. We both schedule. I
think especially when you become a mom, you live and die by that calendar because you really have to schedule everything in because you really have to prioritize your day or it's very easy to end up getting nothing done. And so we were talking about how, we already kind of said scheduling those trips, scheduling even if it's your exercise time, if it's like scheduling in your romantic time with each other, like even for intimacy, we got to where we had to even schedule that. And we know it doesn't sound sexy, but
Well, I
it
mean,
is.
but it is because you anticipate, and you don't have to write sex on the calendar. You can write boom, boom, whatever your secret word is for it. For us, it was boom, boom from that movie Overboard back in the day. I think when you can schedule certain things like that, there is a level of anticipation that makes it better than the spontaneity. There's room for all of it in a relationship.
Right. And I think it's good because there tends to be conflict where, the man's hoping and wishing for it, and the woman's just like, it ain't happening.
Right.
Like, I'm exhausted. But if she knows she told him it's going to be that time, she will try to make things happen to where that can happen. And she's also having time to simmer and.
Well, I think as men, you could be intentional too, though. You know what's going down that night. It's scheduled, so you can go hug a little bit more. You can kiss a little bit. You can do those things leading up to the evening intentionally because you know that's going to happen. And women take longer, right? We talked about the steak analogy I don't know, like 5 or 6 weeks ago. It's men were the sear on the steak. That's all we need. Women, they need it to really be able to marinate and cook, and it takes time and it takes careful crafting. So, man, when you really schedule it, the man can be intentional with their wife, and the woman can be intentional with her husband or whoever the higher sex drive person is. And that way, when your wife comes to bed and she's fully clothed in her pajama pants and t-shirt, or what I like to call battle armor, you're probably nothing's probably going to happen that night. So you're laying there in your boxers or your birthday suit, getting frustrated and angry, wishing that she would roll over and touch you, but you didn't schedule it, and she's just thinking all I want to do is touch the back of my eyelids and go to damn sleep because I'm tired. So schedule it, you guys. It's beautiful what happens when you do. And then there's going to be times for spontaneity and stuff like that too, but don't miss the opportunities.
Yeah, we just know, especially when kids enter the picture, how busy your life really gets, because you went from only having to worry about yourself or you and your spouse to now you have these extra lives you're dealing with their schedules also. So it becomes really hectic. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that shirt, Tired as a Mother. Like, that is real. I mean, you may think tired, but you don't know tired until you become a parent. I mean, it's really because you're adding that many more things to your schedule. Like, it used to be you could just go to work and then have drinks and do whatever when you wanted when you got off work,
Right.
or go relax. That doesn't happen when you have kids. When you have kids, even if you work, you come home to all these extra responsibilities on top of what you already had for yourself. So if you're someone who works and has work you even bring home, like, then you got your kids coming at you. You're like, I got to get dinner for everybody. We got to do homework. They need baths. We got to run to this activity. I mean, it's like nonstop.
Bananas.
Yeah. So if you aren't a parent, let me tell you, you will never meet busier people than parents, because seriously, they have that much more added to their plate. And you parents know what I'm talking about. And this is why we are talking about these steps, prioritizing, scheduling, because it's that important. You can't do all these things without a schedule.
Yeah. And by the way, when they're teenagers and they got a social life, but they're not 16 yet, and you got to drive them around and pick friends up, like, that's a whole nother game. But it gets so busy. And I think the next
And this is what we were saying, like, even the exhaustion, it's like another level of exhaustion.
It's like your soul's exhausted now. You're just not physically exhausted.
Yes.
And by the way, and then you get a little older and your back hurts on top of it. So then you're a little extra cranky. So Steph just said it. We talked about prioritizing, recognizing that you absolutely have a choice. Whether you think you do or you don't, you do. You just got to make the most important things your priority. Scheduling it. The next thing is learning that no is a complete sentence. I'm a really strong personality, guys, and I'm great at creating boundaries. And that's what you got to do when you say no. But I will explain why I said no. Sometimes it's just,
we both have had issues with this in different ways.
Right. And sometimes it's just saying no. Hey, can you come here?
I would have said you were never a person that struggled with that, but at work you did struggle with this. You struggled to tell them no.
The priority was to create more income so we can create a different lifestyle, and I could take care of my family at the level I wanted to. Even though when I was at my busiest at work, especially in corporate America, which was way different than 20 years in the military, especially where it was nonstop. I got people calling me after work. I'm trying to go catch my daughter's game one time at 4:30. My boss says, "Well, you got to watch the optic." Thinking to myself, "You leave for dentist appointments and hair done?"
Yeah,
And
so this is what we were saying, like, even you're getting pressure, like, there's added guilt right there. Like, now your boss is making you feel guilty for wanting to prioritize your family.
right, and I'm like, I started work at 4:30. What you mean I got to watch the optic? I got my managers and directors that work
Right,
for me telling me I need to take a day off.
and you stayed late plenty of times to where,
Mhm.
yeah, your people that you were working for you were even telling you, "Take a vacation. Like, you need time off. You should be doing
Right.
that." Like,
So it's important at work, guys. Like, look, I know if you're driven to be successful, you're going to grind. But this hustle culture where you don't sleep and it's all about the grind, just wrong. You don't live a happy life like that. You set yourself up for early heart attack, like I almost had.
mhm.
Setting those boundaries at work, making sure. For me, I was like, I don't need a work phone. Nope, I'm good. I don't give me a work phone. I'll just connect it to my phone. Stupid. Dumb. Because I could have just turned the work phone off. Those emails that I checked at nighttime didn't need to get checked. There will never be enough time to complete all the work, regardless of what your chosen profession is.
This is really true.
I realized how much I felt like I was prioritizing my family by working my butt off and getting promoted and all these other things that were happening. But I realized I was really prioritizing my employment. Guess what the company I left did? They kept moving when I left. They didn't care that I had a heart attack. Leaders didn't call me that I worked for forever and see how I was doing. Nobody cared. They just kept moving because that's what they do. And that's okay. You know who cared? My wife and my children. You know who cared? I cared. Prioritize the things that are important and create boundaries. That friend that always calls you up and complains and brings your energy down, that energy vampire, tell them you don't have time to talk about that today. You got enough shit going on yourself. It's okay to do that. If you don't say no, takers are going to take.
Yeah, I had a real hard time with this for a long time because I not that I like to admit it, but I was a people pleaser. I always had this very strong sense of guilt for telling anybody no. Like, I couldn't tell people no. I wanted to please everybody. I wanted everybody to like me. And I realized that all that was doing was hurting me in the long run. And it wasn't until I hit that rock bottom of, wow, I didn't prioritize the right things, that I started to learn the word no. It became a very big part of my vocabulary, actually. And today I don't really have any problem telling people no because I realized my personal peace was more important. And once I got that, I didn't want anything else to come before that.
And that was
Like,
a progression, though, for you, right,
oh,
Steph?
yes, very much. And because, like I said, as moms, especially, we feel a whole nother level of guilt most of the time because we know that we kind of are the caretaker for our family. And we have people depending on us. And not to say that others don't, it's just different. Um, but, like, you can have school wanting you to volunteer, church wanting you to volunteer. Our kids are in sports. They want you to coach the teams. Like, they want you to volunteer to do that. I mean, when you have kids, there's stuff coming out of everywhere. Everybody wants you to volunteer for all these things. And you're like, I can't do all of this. I can't even keep up with my own family. Half the time I don't have time to do anything for myself, let alone all these other people. So I really learned that I had to start saying no to the things that weren't really a priority for me.
So how? Okay, so
Even
answer.
friends will have guilt, like, you never call me, you don't make time for me. My parents, my own mother, who knows what it's like to go through this, got mad at me because I wasn't prioritizing calling her.
But really, that's just because she loves you and she wanted you to call her.
Right.
But she was thinking about her emotions in the moment, not yours, or asking you what's going on that you haven't called. Where can you help? Talk about, say, the first 3 times that you really said no. You just no. Versus how much easier it is now. Because I think people get so worried about the right now and the uncomfortable nature of changing some of these habits versus seeing what the outcome's actually going to look like down the road. So talk about that first 2-3 times you said no. I mean, shoot, maybe you said no to me for one of the times. Golly.
I can't think of like specific ones. I just know I know all the things that were coming at me that like I needed my attention because I did take time to go volunteer at my kid's school because I was at home and I couldn't do it with my first daughter because I had the other one at home. But once my second daughter was in school, I started to volunteer in her classroom. But little by little, they'll start asking you to do more and more and more there. And so I would tell them, no, like I'm okay doing this. I come in a couple times a week and help the teacher do some printouts and things like that. But I'm like, I'm not gonna run every class party you have, and like,
But they would have taken
good,
that.
yes, oh yes, and they always have stuff that they need volunteers for. And then even at church, it was like I was volunteering in, because if you had kids going into their program for church,
Like the preschool class,
they wanted you to take turns, you know, helping in another class of kids, which by all means I understand because I wouldn't be able to use the program if someone else wasn't doing that. And I know it really was all the parents. So I did. When I went in, I took my turn and did my, but easily they'll start asking you.
Well, and then I remember during that time, you were like, I need what church is saying right now too. I personally need that right now. So if I go volunteer every time we come, I'm not getting
right. And I did have to get that way. Like I can't do this every time because I actually wanted to get something from the service. I needed it.
So what did you need to prioritize in that moment?
Me.
Oh, right.
So I started to, it was like maybe every other time I would help, so that I could still go in there and then I would also help. I tried to balance that. And I know even for us, like our kids always, I think when they were younger, they did rec league sports and stuff like soccer and whatever. And a lot of times Walt would coach, but he didn't at that time. I think he did have a little more time, but if it were corporate America, he would have had no time to do that. So like some jobs are not very flexible about that. And you do want to be part of that with your kids. So it's like,
well, and that's where the boundaries come in. You show people how you're going to be treated, what your requirements are for how they treat you by whether or not you're able to create the boundaries or say no. So you have to be willing to do that. And when you start saying no, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. But it becomes this position of feeling very empowered when you get more used to it because you realize the effect it has on you. And then you realize the effect it has on the way you show up for the people that you love the most, the people that honestly really deserve the best version of you.
Because I want you guys to think about some of you are one of these people that can't say no, and you have your hands in all these different things. And how do you feel? You're spread so thin that you're really not showing up well probably in anything because you're spread everywhere. Versus if you cut some of those things and you could, prioritize a couple of them, but really be putting your all into those things, how much better would that look?
Man, I'm telling you, it's a game changer, y'all. Y'all got to do it. Just do it. I promise you. Steph just told you she was a people pleaser. I was not really a people pleaser, but I was needed to explain. When you take away all that stuff, that chaotic feeling you get inside starts to really go away. Your level of happiness and joy has a direct correlation to your ability to say no and set boundaries.
And let me tell you, I know some people that I've seen some other moms and friends, and I sit back sometimes and go, I don't know how they're doing all that. You know why? Because they're probably not really doing it very well. They're just trying to do all of it, but most of the time we end up not, because I know there's moms who like they're doing Girl Scouts things and Boy Scouts and every sport their kid does, they're volunteering in that, and then they're helping throw all these things at the school.
Some of them are working.
Yeah. And working on top of it.
And I think that's the problem. And this is the fourth key, right? So we did prioritize what you're doing, recognize you have a choice. Put that priority on your family, yourself, and your spouse. Schedule these things. It doesn't have to be micro versus macro moments. Remember that. Learn to say no, create some boundaries. You can do it. I got maximum confidence in you. And the fourth thing we want to go over today is stop trying to be perfect, man. We live in this social media bullshit world where you only see people's highlights of their life. You only see the good things that, by the way, they want you to see. Remember that. And you think that people got all these things together, and it's the mom that brings cookies and cakes and all this stuff for their family, and they've got all their makeup done and they're perfectly put together all the time, and they're fit and they go to the gym, and But meanwhile, their marriage is crumbling, or their work is suffering, or like internally they don't feel good about themselves, so they're stretching themselves to the point of just being just burnt, just crispy by burning the candle at both ends. Or you have fellas out there, you're trying to be this great dad and come home and be active with your kids and make it to your kids' sporting events, and you're trying to be the man of the house for your wife and protect and provide, and you're trying to be everything to everybody at work. But meanwhile, you're literally being nothing for you. You're so exhausted. Men are committing suicide 3.8 times more often than women because of the pressures that we feel. And by the way, then we don't want to talk about it with nobody because now we feel weak. We don't want to layer that vulnerability. Fellas, we're not asking each other, like, how you really doing, bro? Not, oh, what kind of car did you get? Or did you get promoted? Or look at my things compared to your things. Stop the bravado stuff. There's time for that. There's time to talk shit and have fun out having a couple beers with the fellas. But start realizing that you don't have to be perfect. We talked about different seasons of our life when we really struggled. You cannot give everything to everybody because you will give nothing to anybody, including yourself at the end. There's no such thing as perfect. Those people you think that have all the toys and they're keeping up with the Joneses are broke. They're struggling in their marriage because they're fighting over bills. Their kids are out of control because all they do is buy for them all the time and spoil, and there's no structure in their home. But you don't see none of that. You just see the things. When we stop trying to be perfect and we actually do what means the most to us, the level of joy that we have in our relationship. And you might hear our dog, he's having a little dream over here. That wasn't heavy. So I threw a little thing down on him so he'd stop whining on his dream. So that level and that need to be perfect, when you peel away that pressure, you could just be authentically you. You could be the person you've always wanted to be without being fearful of ridicule and what other people think or what might happen. This fear that we all carry with us of what might happen when really we have no freaking clue. And 99 times out of 100, what we were fearful of doesn't even happen anyway. But we think that it might, so we don't max out our life. If you want to max out your life, stop trying to be perfect and just be who the hell you are, and realize the seasons where things struggle the most is your biggest opportunity to growth and your biggest opportunity to have the comeback of your life. Those seasons Steph and I talked about for us made us way better people. You don't get taught the lesson until you get down enough to the point where you're ready to receive it. Stop trying to be perfect and just be your weird, quirky, amazing self.
Yeah, there's no such thing as perfection. I learned that the hard way, for sure. I am one of those people that I've mentioned before. I'm OCD, and I'm always like, I'm trying to make everything perfect, and it led me to a bad place. So I've learned to start just accepting who I am and not try to be some perfect version, because it doesn't exist. Perfection is really your own perception. Everyone has their own version of what they think is perfect, but there really is no perfect. It doesn't exist. God's the only one who's perfect. And are any of us God? No. So why do we try to be? And like he said, a lot of it comes down to comparison, because we're comparing ourselves to other people, but none of us were meant to be anyone else but us. So just be authentically you and who you really are. And that will be perfect, because people just want you to be you. There is no other you out there. They need you to be you. So,
preach. Let's go. That's good.
If there's anything that we've learned, because Walt and I both, we struggle with this. We both have our ideas of perfect and what we think it looks like and trying to be it. And we just really realized, like, the best thing you can do is be you. Just be yourself. Because we've told each other, there's times where we can tell the other one that you're trying to be perfect, or you're trying to be this, what you think is the version of perfect of this, but that's not you. And it's showing. Like it shows. You know, we can always tell when that person isn't really being who they are. When we try to be someone else, it turns out to look that way too. Like people can tell. So it's always better to just be you, do your best, whatever that is. And we've talked a lot about this. We did a whole episode on this, like that, how comparison is a thief. It's a thief of your joy.
Yeah.
You need to just focus on being better than you were the day before. Do a little bit better every day. That's what we've learned to do, is just work on being a little bit better than we were ourselves, so that we can show up better for ourselves and everyone else.
Yeah, I think if you're 1% better every day, you're going to have a lot of success in your life in every single category. So just focus on that. Man, that was really well said, Steph. I think just comparison and the way people compare really just diminishes not only the value that they bring, but it diminishes what value they bring to themselves, not just other people. And so the more we
It does. I find I'm the most unhappy when I'm trying to compare myself to someone else I think looks better than me, or they do something better than me, and then I just end up feeling bad about myself. It doesn't affect anybody else but me.
And everybody's running their own race. So that person you're comparing yourself to that's super fit, well, they're in the gym 3 hours a day and their relationship is struggling.
And trust me, I know it's in our face all the time, especially now, like we said, with all this social media stuff. And you're really seeing all these versions of or people that look so perfect when all of that stuff is staged. And, we've talked a lot about this, how even on TV, they've said for years, they use filters. It is airbrushed images. Like they do things to make you look better. They're putting a lot of makeup, and there's people doing their hair and makeup and picking out their outfits. So of course they're going to look more perfect, because all that's being done for them. We don't do that in our everyday life. We don't have that luxury. So we can't expect to look like that. All we're going to do is hurt ourselves.
Yeah, I think, bottom line, guys, support your spouse, support your significant other in your relationship. We make each other better. We make each other stronger. Like, man, when you can really combine how you feel in a relationship and you can get to the point of support, not resentment, and you can start to strip away the guilt and the distractions and the burnout and the exhaustion and I'm not good enough and nobody loves me. And all these things we tell ourselves that just bring us down. You can truly get rid of that. And every season's going to challenge you in a different way. So keep running into whatever season you're in so that you can get into the next one. The light and abundance you bring to the world is what's going to really be a game changer for you. We talked about 4 things you can do today. 4 to make time for yourself and your marriage. Prioritization, recognizing you have a choice. Get it. That's it. It seems simple, but it's not simple. Schedule it. Doesn't have to be extensive. Micro versus macro. Learn that no is a complete sentence. I really would love to hear from some of you guys who are part of our legacy driven marriages Facebook group or Instagram group, or if you follow us on YouTube. Send us an IM or DM. Let us know that you said no for the first time. I want to know how it felt, because it's going to be more empowering once it comes out of your mouth, but it'll feel really hard before it does. Create those boundaries. And damn it, stop trying to be perfect. Just be you. You're perfect in the way that God made you. Embrace that so you can get rid of all the other distractions that you have, and you can pour into those people that you love the most. And look, as always, listen to this episode with your partner. This is what I talk about. Steph and I, we really do listen to podcasts together and talk about it, what we took away, because from a feminine and masculine perspective, we really do take different things away. And when we share it, it helps us elevate who we are, because I didn't even think of it in the way she thought of it. And have that conversation that your relationship truly does need. Prioritize that over everything. Make sure that you join the Legacy Driven Marriages Facebook and Instagram page at Legacy Driven Marriages. Can't be much easier. Check out our website at www.legacydrivenmarriages. And
that's new.
Yes, we built it. We're super proud. Please go check it out. And then sign up for the bi-weekly newsletter that we're going to be doing, or weekly. We haven't kind of decided on that part yet, but make sure you sign up for it. And then just continue to stay involved, whatever areas that you're in, with other couples that are fighting for their relationships, and stay around those people. So look, guys, we're going to wrap up here. So until the next time,
keep fighting for your marriage, keep loving each other, and keep elevating your legacy. And we'll see you next Tuesday.